A while ago, I did a video about how this computer guy who fixes my computer had no idea what a tariff was, and he thought it was something China would have to pay, Trump supporter. And I tried to explain to him what a tariff was, and he was quite baffled. And I was saying these tariffs are going to make computers much more expensive, and this guy has a computer business. And I could tell it sort of went over his head, probably because we haven't had tariffs on computers in a while, so this was a new concept for him. Well, fast forward a couple of months, and today I get an email from his office, encourage everyone to buy now. Because of tariffs, prices are going to go up. I thought, wow. You know, it took a couple months, but you finally figured out what a tariff is, and now it's impacting your business. You're worried because with higher prices means fewer people can afford to buy your computers. So yeah, he's a little anxious now. I guess it's an FAFO.
Is the orange criminal serious about invading Greenland, about going to war with Denmark? Denmark, which has been a close ally to the United States. It's a member of NATO. We have military bases on Greenland because Denmark has given us permission, because they have been an ally, at least up to this point. So is Donald Trump serious about going to war with them over Greenland? I don't know. Certainly sounds like he is. Got an article here from the Wall Street Journal. Headline: U.S. orders intelligence agencies to step up spying on Greenland. The U.S. is stepping up its intelligence gathering efforts regarding Greenland, drawing America's spying apparatus into President Trump's campaign to take over the island. This, according to two people familiar with the effort. Several high-ranking officials under Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, what a joke that is, issued a, quote, collection emphasis message to intelligence agency heads last week. They were directed to learn more about Greenland's independence movements and attitude on American resource extraction on the island. The article goes on, but the gist of it is Trump seems to be serious, and he's ratcheting up efforts in preparation for invading Greenland and going to war with Denmark. A war, by the way, which would be completely illegal and unconstitutional unless approved by Congress. And you know damn well he wouldn't get any approval from Congress. So if he does anything to attack Greenland, to go to war with Denmark, that would be yet another impeachable offense. Is Congress ever going to wake the hell up?
OMG, folks. Libs with TDS are at it again. Jeez. Yeah, I think I'm going to pray to Jesus to burn their houses down. I mean, enough is enough. Trump totes didn't have anything to do with the AI Pope pick. And even if he did, it's not okay for holy men to try to censor the White House social media account. Like, so what? The White House posted this, and then a few days later, the Catholic Church posted this, and the libs were like, see, even the Catholic Church thinks Trump is a baddie. But they're so wrong. Seriously. No way was Trump offered 3 versions of the Pope pick and he went with the one with the best tan. And he totally didn't deny posting it because the Catholic Church was pissed about it. No way. He was already planning a post to say he didn't post it because he plays 4D chess and he's 6'4" and 240 pounds, a professional skier, street fighter, ninja warrior, and way smarter than Einstein. Person, man, woman, camera, TV, don't you know? Anyway, Trump never said he'd end the wars in Ukraine and Gaza on day 1 or bring prices down, and he never promised not to cut Social Security and Medicare. That's ridiculous. He knew fighting plastic straws and PBS and Canada and deporting kids with cancer would be time-consuming, so he never would have overpromised. Anyone who says that is a paid Soros protester. They're all over the place. All the people hitting the streets over and over again, the town hall constituents yelling at their Republican lawmakers, and everyone in all the polls showing Trump is underwater, all of them are on the dole. Obvi. Anyway, Trump definitely didn't say doing anything once he was in office would be easy, because duh, Biden. And so what if Biden followed the Constitution? Biden would have followed anyone right off a cliff when he was president. And presidents with good brains don't need constitutions. They have to be allowed to enact their vision for themselves and for whoever happens to survive with him, as it should be. Survival of the most delusional sociopathic narcissist and whoever happens to be hiding up his tuchus when he eviscerates the homeland. That's nature at its finest. And come on, rule schmools in the belly of the gilded narcissist. Nobody expects him to follow rules. He's at his best when he's out of bounds. And libs can't handle it. They're so like, without Social Security, I'm on the street. And the tariffs are taking my business. And oh no, my kid has measles. I mean, whatevs. Like, where's your sense of excitement? Embrace the uncertainty already, right? Yeah, total TDS. Well, libs, you better get used to it. I mean, Trump's your daddy. Just sit back and enjoy the ride, okay? Yeah.
The tricky thing, if you're a comic, we have audiences and they appreciate what we do. The real problem is because of the climate is that, you know, they might not need to shut you up because you're going to shut yourself up out of fear. And that becomes a real problem for democracy, and it really becomes a problem for self-expression, is that out of fear of like, hey, who's in the room? Are they in here? Is it safe for me to talk like this? You know, that is a real shutdown of freedom of speech, and it's happening, you know, internally through your own fear, and that is part of what the power of propaganda can do to somebody, and the power of terror on behalf of the people that are now running things, is that they may not have to shut you up because you're going to shut yourself up. And that's really what, you know, I'm up against, and I think that's what people in their lives are up against, is the idea of, is it safe for me to say this here, not because it's the government has told you not to, but you're afraid of your fucking neighbor.
How to fix this country in 3 minutes. 1, no more stock buybacks. It's too much to get into, but corporations just can't do it anymore. The second is to tax stock gains. I don't know if you know this, but they don't tax stock gains until they cash it out. So if you're worth millions of dollars and you just want to take loans against your stock and never cash them out, and just live off the loans and use money from your stock portfolio to pay back your loans, you never have to pay taxes. Third, reverse Reagan economics. Bring back the 90% top tax rate. Take investing out of politics. Any politician is no longer allowed to invest in the stock market. They can put their money into a fund and get double the price of inflation, no more, no less. Politicians should be forced to retire at the age of 65. If you can collect Social Security, you can't be a politician anymore. Implement a maximum wage, not a minimum wage, a maximum wage. You cannot make more than 100 times your minimum employee. Unionize everything in this country, from McDonald's workers all the way up. If UPS can make billions of dollars in profit and still be highly competitive in the market, where they do 20 to 30% of all packages and still pay people $50 an hour to drive a truck, other companies can figure it out too. If a company has one single employee file for any sort of food stamps or housing or Medicare, the company has to pay that back to the government before they can make a profit. Walmart made $186 billion last year and had almost $600 million worth of social debt that our taxpayers paid for. Make Walmart pay that first before they can make a profit. Eliminate the Electoral College. Only 2 presidents since the Civil War era have been elected by losing the popular vote: Donald Trump and George Bush. See a pattern? Joe Biden won by over 2 million votes, yet the election came down to 44,000 votes in 3 different states. Make them campaign to all of us, not just swing states. If you own a second home as a landlord or anything, you are not allowed to take depreciation, and you should be taxed on what your house gains in value as an investment. How do companies own 70 and 80 homes and yet collect rental income and still show a loss? Just imagine where our world could be with these simple and easy changes. Comment what changes you would make to make this country better. Let's start the discussion.
As an American who watched the meeting between Prime Minister Carney and President Trump, let me just start by saying, who the hell was Trump calling Mark? Honestly, he called Prime Minister Carney Mark maybe 6 or 7 times. It was embarrassing to watch. You do not speak that way to a world leader. He's always Prime Minister Carney, or at the very least, the guy has a PhD, Dr. Carney. Period. If you haven't watched the full meeting, go watch it on YouTube. It's like 30 minutes long, but you can get away with watching the first 10 or 15 minutes because the rest of the time, President Trump spends, just blabbing about, what the United States is doing. He was really trying to turn it into a propaganda event. But huge respect to Prime Minister Carney. He was so well-spoken. He was articulate. He was respectful. He was putting on a masterclass of how a world leader should behave. I love how Prime Minister Carney over and over said, Canada's never going to be for sale. Never. Near the end, he said it probably 7 times in a row. Never, 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 right? And I also love how he was talking about the Canadian people. He was saying, I have been meeting with the owners of Canada over the last few months, and they're not down for it, right? He was making it very clear what the situation is. Prime Minister Carney was also showing why he's such a master negotiator. He was doing just enough to kind of pump up President Trump's ego so that he could bring it back continuously to this idea that this needs to be a partnership. Canada's not just going to bow to the United States. We need to be working together, and that is the right message. At the end of the day, Prime Minister Carney was in a tough situation. He was at the White House for the first time. He had to make sure that this meeting went well. He was surrounded by Trump's cronies, and he was doing a fantastic job of holding his ground and advocating for Canada. I also hope that you guys realize that any of the nice things that he said about Canada is just propaganda. Like, he's trying to win you guys back, and so I hope that everybody just saw through that. Even when he was talking about Prime Minister Carney's campaign and how he ran such a great campaign and it's a masterful comeback, right? He kept saying like, oh, but I think I'm the best thing that ever happened to you, right? Like, it's always got to be about him. He's always got to say, oh, but you must have just only won because I won it for you. It's like, come on, dude. So to summarize, I think President Trump again tried to turn this into one of his propaganda events, but Prime Minister Carney did a fantastic job of advocating for Canada, making sure that the president understood exactly where Canada stands, how the only way that they're going to move forward is through a partnership. This was a huge victory for Prime Minister Carney. This is a huge victory for Canada. And again, it just confirms the fact that you guys are in such capable hands. I'm excited to see what the next few months bring and what Prime Minister Carney is going to do to sort of just run circles around this man, because I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
So the same folks who are ostensibly obsessed with turning around the population decline here in America just ended the Safe to Sleep campaign. The thing that has educated parents over the past 30 years on how to safely put their infant to sleep. Because the number one cause of infant deaths are sleep-related unintentional suffocation. And since this education campaign launched, the rate of infant deaths has decreased by 50%. If your life includes a baby, then you probably have heard this information. Have the baby sleep on their back on a firm mattress in their own space. Avoid sleeping with an infant on a couch or an armchair. Keep loose blankets, pillows, crib bumpers, and other soft items out of the area. And you might be like, who cares if this campaign goes away? The information is out there. Well, turns out we have to keep educating people, because between 2020 and 2022, the height of the pandemic, when healthcare was a little bit harder to get, we saw sleep-related infant deaths increase by 12%. So what is the justification for ending this program? I don't know. My guess is that they are going to say this is part of their efforts to eliminate government waste. Okay, but all it's really going to do is eliminate newborns. Don't ever let them tell you that they are pro-life.
Donald Trump is continuing his assault on the veterans of this country. Last night, someone asked to join my live, so I brought them up. His name was Jeff, and he's retired Army. Currently, he works for the VA, and his job is to find housing for veterans that are experiencing homelessness. Jeff shared something with me regarding the VA, and more specifically his department, that I found absolutely appalling. Now, I'm going to explain, but I'm also going to ask that you share this video like crazy. When I was doing research for this video, there are not nearly enough people out there talking about this. Our veterans deserve to have this information out there. Bear with me. I'm going to show you a quick clip just to give some context about what I'm talking about.
Under crooked Joe Biden, the U.S. government has spent nearly $1 billion to house illegal aliens and foreign migrants in expensive luxury hotels, courtesy of you, the American taxpayer, and they want to spend billions and billions more. Meanwhile, we have 33,000 veterans in this country who are homeless and living very poorly, I might add, and it's a shame. We cannot let this happen any longer. The American veteran is one of our greats. These are great, great people. We have to take care of them. On day one, I will sign an executive order to cut off Joe Biden's massive spigot of funding for shelter and transport of illegal aliens and redirect a portion of those savings, a very large portion, I might add, to provide shelter and treatment for homeless American veterans.
He claimed he was going to sign this executive order on day one. I looked at the executive orders from the entire first week of his administration, and I couldn't find it. That's not to say he didn't sign it, but I couldn't find it. Now, flash forward to a few days ago when Donald Trump released his skinny budget, a roadmap to the more detailed budget coming out of the White House soon, but it lays out the goals, at least budgetary, of what they want to accomplish. Let's look specifically at HUD, the Office of Housing and Urban Development. This is what Donald Trump is proposing for HUD. This is the current budget, $77 billion. He proposes $43.5 billion, which is a net drop of, let's round up to 44%. 44% reduction in HUD's budget. Right now, you might be saying, well, that doesn't sound good, but what does that have to do with the VA, and specifically homeless veterans? That's an entirely different department. Let me show you. This is the breakdown of the specific changes to HUD's budget. And don't worry, we only have to read the first sentence here. Reduce more than $26 billion for a range of rental assistance programs. All right? We're going to take $26 billion out of HUD's rental assistance programs. Now let's bring the VA in. The HUD Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing, HUD-VASH, which is the program I was unaware of and the program that is going to suffer because of these budget cuts. The HUD-VASH program combines housing choice vouchers, rental assistance for homeless veterans with case management and clinical services provided by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you see it? Rental assistance for homeless veterans. Trump's proposed budget cuts $26 billion from HUD's budget that is specifically earmarked for rental assistance programs. Those are the very rental assistance programs that HUD-VASH utilizes to find housing for homeless veterans. He doesn't care about homeless veterans. He doesn't care. Our veterans deserve so much better than Donald Trump.
It was really funny today. I was watching the Canadian Prime Minister basically run circles around Donald Trump today in the most embarrassing way possible. Like, Carney ran the Bank of Canada for years, and he wasn't even in Parliament or anything when Justin Trudeau resigned and they decided to pick him as leader. But I completely understand why they did that now. Carney went and met with Donald Trump in the Oval Office today, which could be a very intimidating situation. Obviously, like the U.S. president, who'd been president for years, you're in the Oval Office, which is probably the most famous room in the world. And Trump tried to push all these lies, and Carney just was like not having any of it. Like Donald Trump said this like ridiculously stupid thing, like, oh, well, Canada's not even really like in our worldview, so like we don't really even care. And Carney was like, we are your largest trading partner on earth. And it's just like these moments, and I know that Trump people don't see this at all, but I kind of want to be like, do you guys listen to your person? Like, he is a complete moron. He knows nothing. And he's been doing this now for, 5-6 years? And he doesn't know anything. And these world leaders come to the White House and they just clown him. And it's like, do you guys not see this? Or do you just not care?
Well, who pays tariffs? Sorry, Mr. Secretary, please. Excuse me. The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question. He wants to answer other questions.
Well, Congressman, if the Congressman
Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, can't answer that simple question, who pays tariffs. Ultimately, you and me, because if he said so in public, Trump would fire him. Scott Bessent has chosen to live in Trump's fantasy world, but you and me, we've got to deal with reality. You know, last week, the radio in my car started to go out, and I realized I needed to get a new one in a hurry because, you know why? Tariffs. So I bought one right away. I'm still waiting to get adapter parts for the radio because of why? Tariffs. But I looked at what the radio cost this week, $2.89, 35-40% higher this week in comparison to last week. Why? You know why. Tariffs. Now, supposedly we're paying these tariffs, emptying our pocketbooks in order to get great jobs to come back to the United States in electronics manufacturing. You know, I grew up in Milwaukee when there was electronics manufacturing. You know what the worst job was in Milwaukee? John Oster, making circuit boards. Terrible, awful work, lousy pay. The shelves haven't emptied yet. They will. Parts are getting hard to find. And what you're buying, you're paying more for it already. Reality, the people who voted for this, out of their gourds. And Trump is definitely out of his gourd.
Hi folks, so the long anticipated meeting between President Trump and Mark Carney took place today. And I was actually really impressed by Mark Carney personally. Politics aside, he was respectful. At the same time, I felt that he had an air of power over Donald Trump. Donald likes to use words. He's like this all the time. And there was times when I think Mark Carney personally remained silent just to let Trump sound stupid. I really believe that. You know, in regards to the 51st state comment, you know, it's been mentioned so many times, and I felt like Mark Carney really reiterated it, that this is a ridiculous comment, a ridiculous statement. This is obviously a early doors kind of relationship for these guys, but at the same time, I think that there was respect there. And if there's anything that can be taken out of this meeting, it's that I felt like Canada's position is now stronger again. I felt that when it talked about USMCA, Carney said, you know, things have to change, you know, because your tariffs are unfair, basically is what he said. And then the 51st state question came up, of course. We will never be the 51st state, and that's absolutely correct. We actually never will be, ever. Okay, so let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. My name is Nick. I'd love you to give me a follow. The source where I looked at actually came from CNN. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on this.
Today is 6 May 2025. So Trump met with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney today in the Oval Office. And Mark Carney strongly stood up for Canada, telling Trump that Canada is not for sale. And good on him. Canada is not for sale. Normal, regular Americans who didn't vote for Trump and don't believe his MAGA garbage, I think the majority of Americans don't want to take over Canada. That's ridiculous. The Canadians are our friends. They are our allies. We love Canada. They are their own sovereign nation, and that's it. And Mark Carney did a good job of being firm and saying Canada is not for sale, but doing it in a very diplomatic way by also saying, you know, like the Oval Office, the White House is not for sale. It's not. Imagine if a foreign country came to the United States and said, we want to annex you. We want to take you over and make you a part of our region. That's the crap that Russia does. Ukraine, that's the crap that Donald Trump wants to do. And it's insane. And it's undemocratic. It's imperialistic. And it's nonsense. So, no. Canada is not for sale. And the majority of Americans don't want to annex Canada. We want to continue our partnership and friendship with Canada. The second thing here, of course, during that same meeting is Trump basically stating, I could make 25 deals right now. And besides, we don't even need trade deals. If others want a part of our market, they need to make the deals. That is complete and utter nonsense. Okay? These tariffs have absolutely, they're destroying the U.S. economy. We are exporting less. Our agricultural sector is getting hit hard because agricultural products that we usually export to allies and others, other countries that are not necessarily our allies, but we still do business with them, like China, we're not exporting. We're not importing goods, consumer goods, toys, house appliances, kitchen appliances, things like that. We're not importing those. And so it's hurting our economy. And when Trump says, we don't need these deals, they need these deals. They need to be a part of us. No, he's isolating us. We import a ton of goods. We import more than we export. Lumber, parts for vehicles, high technology type equipment, semiconducting equipment, things that go into cell phones, stuff like that. We're not going to be able to import without having trade deals with our partners and allies. And all the economists and everybody are saying we are about a couple weeks away from really seeing supply chain shortages because traders are not going to be importing all the goods that they would normally do because they're going to get hit with these enormous tariffs. And the goods that do make it in are going to be a giant tax hike on us, the American people. We fit the bill. We're going to eat the cost of these tariffs. The big companies aren't going to. They're going to make their prices higher to offset the tariffs. So this is the largest tax hike probably in American history by Donald Trump. That's what a tariff is. Foreign governments don't pay the tariffs. We do. So Trump is nonsense. And just to go back to the 25 trade deals, he doesn't have any deals in the works. It's ridiculous. He's making this up because he knows that some of his MAGA base will believe anything he says. The Republicans in Congress are spineless and won't push back and be like, Trump, your trade policy is ridiculous. It's not even a policy. It's not even a strategy. It's insanity. It's one-off attacks against different countries. Trump wants to take us back to the early 20th century where we did bilateral trade agreements. We hadn't had a globalized economy yet. We hadn't had post-World War II globalized economy, globalized world. And so he wants to take us back to those times. That's never going to exist again. That kind of trade, that kind of world no longer exists. We're too interconnected. He doesn't seem to get this through his thick head. And Peter Navarro, who he brought on to help him with tariffs, doesn't know anything about tariffs. He wrote a book and made up stuff. But of course, Jared Kushner went and found, who would agree on, tariffs and trade policy with my father-in-law? Oh, here's this guy. And, it's ridiculous. Peter Navarro doesn't have any experience. This administration doesn't have any experience. Meanwhile, their decisions are severely damaging our economy and are going to hurt lower and middle-class people. The majority of which MAGA are. Sorry, MAGA, you're part of the lower middle class. You voted for this. FAFO.